The first scream did not use sound. It used fear. Across the black halls of the Hive Palace, every living mind froze at the same moment. Guards stopped breathing. Servants dropped to the floor. The walls themselves seemed to tighten as the alien Queen Ziraxa woke from her rest and felt the empty space beside her thoughts. Her sons were gone. Ziraxa rose from the center of the chamber, her long crown crest flaring wide. The royal chamber was sealed. It was protected by ancient shields and living guards. Nothing entered without her knowing. Nothing left without her command. Yet the bond she shared with her twin heirs had gone silent, like two stars pulled out of the sky. She reached again with her mind. Nothing. The Queen's fury rolled outward in a psychic wave. Across the Hive world, millions of drones collapsed. Commanders screamed as pain filled their skulls. The Queen did not care. Her sons were the future of the brood. They were not just children. They were symbols of survival. Find them, she ordered, her voice cutting through every channel at once. Find them now. Alarms that had never been used began to glow. War chambers opened. Star maps ignited across the air. The royal guards knelt, shaking, as Ziraxa stepped forward. Her shadow stretched across the chamber floor like a living thing. The twins had been resting only moments ago. Small for their kind, newly formed, still learning control of their power. Curious. Fragile. Ziraxa remembered their soft clicks of comfort. Their minds had been calm. Then gone. This is not theft, she said slowly. This is an insult. The Hive Council arrived in silence, afraid to speak. One dared to raise a clawed hand. No breach was detected, Great Mother. No enemy signal. No trace of force. Ziraxa's eyes burned brighter. Then the universe itself will answer for this. She turned to the stars. Across nearby systems, fleets awakened. Living ships uncurled from orbit. Weapons grown for extinction warmed with heat. Entire trade routes were sealed without warning. Species who had never heard the Queen's name felt dread for reasons they could not explain. The search began. Scouts poured into space, following the faint echo of the twins' last presence. It was weak, unstable. As if the princess had not been taken by force but drifted. That thought made Ziraxa's rage sharpen. They wandered, she hissed. Impossible. Her sons were guarded by instinct and command. Yet the echo did not feel like fear. It did not feel like pain. It felt quiet. The scouts followed the trail anyway, jumping farther from the hive than ever before. Past known allies. Past neutral zones. Into regions marked only as low value. Ziraxa watched through their eyes. The trail led not to a fortress, not to a rival empire, but to a thin band of space filled with broken stations and half-used trade paths. A place beneath notice. A place where nothing important should exist. The Queen's anger did not fade. It grew colder. Humans, one commander reported, voice tight. This region is used by humans. Ziraxa knew of them. A young species. Short-lived. Loud. Clever in small ways. Dangerous in groups, weak alone. They were tolerated because they were useful, not because they were trusted. Her sons had no reason to go near them. Advance, Ziraxa ordered. But do not strike yet. She wanted answers before blood. As the fleets moved, Ziraxa reached again for the bond. This time something stirred. A faint pulse. Slow. Steady. A heartbeat. Not alien. Not royal. Human. The Queen froze. That was impossible. Her sons should have been screaming in fear, not resting to the rhythm of another creature's life. Yet the feeling was there. Warm. Come. The twins were not struggling. They were not calling for her. They were sleeping. Ziraxa's claws dug into the floor. Confusion fought with rage inside her vast mind. No species held her children and lived. No being touched them without command. And yet the bond carried no harm. The fleet slowed as they neared the source. A single human station floated ahead. Scarred. Barely armed. No defenses worth naming. Ziraxa watched through the eyes of a scout drone as it slipped closer. Inside the station, lights were dim. Systems hummed softly. No alarms. No signs of battle. In one small living chamber, a human lay back against a wall, asleep. His breathing was slow. His body still. And there, curled against his chest, were the Queen's sons. Their small forms glowed faintly, color shifting with contentment. One claw rested against the human's neck. The other had tucked itself beneath his arm. They were safe, peaceful, unaware that a queen prepared to burn stars for them. Ziraxa's fury shattered into something sharp and silent. The human did not restrain them, did not bind them. His arms were loose, careful, as if afraid to wake them. His face showed no triumph, only tired calm. The queen felt something she had not felt since her own creation: uncertainty. She did not give the order to attack. Instead she watched. And for the first time in her long reign, the greatest power in the sector waited, holding her breath, as a human heartbeat guarded what all her armies could not. Evan Cole worked quietly in the outer station, far from the crowded corridors of the capital systems. He was small for a human, with hands calloused from years of repairing machines that seemed older than the stars themselves. Most of the crew ignored him, busy with schedules and reports. But Evan had a habit no one understood. He looked for life wherever it hid. He fixed broken drones not because he was ordered but because they were hurt. He repaired old cargo pods because they seemed lonely. And sometimes he stayed awake all night to watch the stars, listening to the hum of space as if it whispered secrets meant only for him. The twins had not arrived by chance. A week earlier, Evan had been inspecting the outer ring of the station when he noticed movement near a damaged cargo bay. At first he thought it was a stray maintenance drone lost and shaking. But as he drew closer, he saw two tiny figures, curled up and shivering in the shadow of the metal hull. They were strange shapes, small, with scales that glimmered faintly in the dim light. Their eyes were wide, black as void, filled with fear. Evan froze for a moment, uncertain. The station had rules. Life forms outside of docking protocol were forbidden. Alien creatures could be dangerous. Yet something in their quiet desperation stopped him from leaving. He knelt down and whispered softly, careful not to startle them. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe here." The twins tilted their heads, wary but not aggressive. They did not speak in words, but Evan sensed their thoughts, faint flickers of emotion and memory. They had been frightened, separated from everything they knew, and now the human before them was calm. That calmness alone was enough. Evan wrapped them in a thermal blanket he kept for emergencies. One of the twins rested its head against his shoulder, its small claws brushing lightly against his chest. The other nestled beside it, warm and trembling. The human did not move. He stayed still, whispering quiet reassurances that had no sound beyond his voice. He knew that panic could be contagious. Even a small gesture of patience could make the difference between trust and fear. He carried them back to his small quarters. It was cramped, filled with tools and half-finished repairs, but it was safe. The twins did not resist, and for the first time in days they seemed to relax. Evan set them down on a pile of blankets, still wrapped snugly. They curled into him as if they had known him forever, their breathing slowing. Evan sat beside them, letting the warmth of their tiny bodies press against his chest. He felt their pulse, slow and unsteady yet alive. The night passed in silence. Outside, the hum of the station continued, engines and life support systems creating a rhythm. Inside, the human and the two alien princes rested together. Evan's eyes stayed half open, watching them. He had never been close to royalty or anything resembling it, but he understood something instinctive. These creatures needed protection, not rules. He thought about the news that sometimes reached the outer stations, stories of alien politics, wars and lost heirs. He did not care about politics. He only cared about the soft weight on his chest and the quiet trust in their small movements. It was enough to keep him awake and alert, listening to every creak of the station, every distant rumble of machinery just in case danger came. By morning, the twins had begun to explore their temporary home. Their movements were careful, tentative but curious. One reached for a small wrench on the table, poking it with a claw. The other tilted its head at the blinking lights on the wall. Evan did not intervene unless they were at risk. He watched them, laughed softly at their awkward attempts, and marveled at their intelligence. It was unlike anything he had encountered, sharper and quicker than any machine he had ever repaired. Food was another matter. Evan had little that would appeal to alien tastes. He offered small rations of his own supplies, mashed and softened. The twins sniffed again and eventually nibbled. They were learning to trust that the human did not mean harm. News of the missing heirs had spread, but Evan had not heard it. The station's communication system was old, slow, and mostly focused on commerce and repairs. He did not expect visitors. He did not imagine fleets of scouts tracing the trail to his quiet corner of the universe. He only imagined a peaceful moment, the twins asleep on his chest, the warmth of their bodies a fragile comfort against the endless cold of space. Even when small disturbances occurred in the station, alarms, maintenance errors, the occasional curious crew member, Evan remained calm. He covered the twins, reassured them, and protected them with nothing more than patience. There was no fight, no shouting. Just careful attention and a quiet human heartbeat that seemed to resonate with them. By the end of the week, the twins had begun to respond to him. Their tiny minds touched his gently, exploring trust. They made soft sounds, clicks, and hums, patterns of communication that Evan could not fully understand but could feel. It was a connection deeper than language, built on quiet moments, warmth, and safety. And yet, Evan could sense it, something was coming. The universe rarely left such things alone. But for now he stayed with them. He had no weapons, no authority, only his presence and his care. That presence was enough. The twins had chosen him without knowing his name. And in the silent corners of the station, far from the roaring fleets and the fury of an alien queen, a human quietly held the most important beings in the galaxy, simply by being steady, kind, and brave enough to remain still. Night fell again and the station hummed. The twins curled against Evan's chest, blinking slowly, eyes half closed in sleep. The human closed his eyes too, listening to the faint rhythm of their breathing. Somewhere far away, a queen raged and fleets moved. But here, in this quiet human chamber, life rested, fragile and calm, held by a simple human who did not know the weight of the universe, or perhaps in his quiet way who carried it better than anyone else. The alien scouts had expected resistance. They had imagined the missing princes captured by smugglers, caged on a rogue station or worse, injured, frightened, screaming for help. They had prepared for battle, their weapons charged, their claws sharpened, their minds focused on one goal: retrieve the heirs and punish any who dared touch them. But what they found was different. Evan Cole's station was quiet, almost empty. The scouts approached carefully, warily. Sensors detected movement inside, small and unarmed. They saw no traps, no weapons, no signs of struggle. One scout slipped through a narrow airlock, invisible in the dim light. It drifted toward the living quarters where the twins were supposed to be. Inside, Evan sat against a wall, his small form steady, arms carefully supporting the two alien children. One rested against his chest, the other curled into his side. Their breathing was slow, even, almost peaceful. The human's eyes were open, but calm. He did not move suddenly, did not flinch. He only looked at the children with quiet attention, as if their safety mattered more than anything else in the galaxy. The scout hesitated. The sensors confirmed something impossible. No threat. No aggression. The human did not restrain the twins, did not manipulate them. He simply held them, letting them rest as if their presence were the most natural thing in the universe. The scout withdrew slowly, sending the observation back to the fleet. Its report was filled with uncertainty. The words human and calm repeated, but they could not convey the strangeness of what it had seen. Across the Hive network, the Queen's commanders argued, trying to reconcile logic with reality. Human, protector, one hissed. Impossible. They are weak, untrained. They cannot contain royalty. They do not attack, another responded. They watch, carefully. They wait. Zarax's voice cut through the debate, transmitted to the fleet. Do not strike. Observe. Understand. If they harm my children, they will pay. But if they protect them, it is different. The scouts returned, moving with caution, examining every corner of the station. They saw Evan cleaning small tools, feeding the twins improvised rations, humming softly to keep them calm. He moved slowly, deliberately, ensuring that nothing startled them. One of the scout's sensors registered the subtle warmth emanating from his chest. The twins were drawn to it, resting their small forms against him. The Queen's children, for all their strength, were calm only because of a human heartbeat. No scout had expected this. They had expected panic, screams, resistance. They had expected the usual chaos when different species interacted under duress. But this was peace. A commander spoke hesitantly across the fleet network. Mother, the human, does not fight. They do not restrain them. They are guiding them. Not controlling. Not threatening. The children respond, willingly. Zarax's mind reached across space. She felt the bond between Evan and her sons. It was not dominance, not fear, not trickery. It was protection. Patience. Steadiness. She had not anticipated this in any species. She had trained her armies to fear, respect, or obey her commands. And yet here, in a quiet human station, her sons rested safely because of care. The fleet stopped their advance. Weapons that had been ready to fire chilled in their power cells. Commanders looked at each other, unsure how to proceed. No attack order came. Every scout was instructed to observe, and every observation confirmed the same strange truth. The human was not dangerous. The human was steady. Inside the room, Evan shifted slightly, careful not to disturb the twins. One of them yawned, stretching its tiny claws and tail, then returned to his chest. The other blinked slowly, sensing no danger. Evan smiled faintly, brushing a finger along their scaled heads. "It's okay," he whispered. "Nothing will hurt you here." The scouts recorded everything, noting the precise way Evan handled the twins, the soft care in his movements, the deliberate calm in his speech. They saw something in him that their training could not explain. Patience, courage, and a strength that did not rely on weapons or force. A senior scout finally transmitted to the queen. "Mother, this human, they are unlike any species we have known. They do not strike. They do not threaten. Yet they have contained the children without force. They have earned their trust." Zarax's mind pulsed with fury, then something sharper. Curiosity. She had ruled empires, commanded fleets, and crushed worlds. She had trained generations of warriors. And yet a single human, unarmed, calm, and gentle, held her royal airs without challenge. She did not understand it, but she wanted to. The scouts lingered, careful not to intrude, not to alarm the twins. Evan's quiet routines continued. Feeding, gentle hums, soft words, protective movements. The twins responded naturally, exploring their surroundings only when they felt safe. The human was not a threat. He was a haven. Even the youngest scout could feel it. The human's presence changed the balance. Where fleets had sought power, the human offered calm. Where weapons had threatened, the human offered patience. And the twins, sensing no danger, had no reason to fight. Zaraxa decided that the next step would be to see for herself. She would come. Not with weapons. Not with threats. She would observe the human who could do what her armies could not. Calm the fury of children bred for war. The fleet held its position. The human remained at the center of the quiet chamber, arms wrapped carefully around the small, slumbering twins. Outside, the vastness of space waited, filled with the roars of stars and the hum of engines. But inside, for a few precious moments, nothing threatened the children. And that was enough to make even the fiercest warriors pause. For the first time, they realized that strength did not always roar. Sometimes, it rested quietly, in the steady hands and warm heartbeat of a human who simply cared. The scouts watched. The twins slept. Evan hummed softly. Outside, the galaxy roared with fleets and fury, but inside that quiet human chamber, the impossible was happening. The children of a queen, lost and hunted, were safe, not because of fear or force, but because one human had chosen to protect them. It was simple. It was quiet. It was enough. And it was the beginning of something that would change the galaxy forever. Zarax's ship glided silently above the human station. The queen's presence filled the bridge like a storm waiting to break. Her eyes, sharp as molten metal, scanned the small craft below. She had expected chaos, screams, or betrayal. She had prepared to unleash fury and punish any being foolish enough to touch her sons. Instead she found calm. The transmission from the scouts displayed the scene in perfect detail. Evan Cole sat against a wall, still as stone, while the twins rested peacefully on his chest. Their eyes were half closed, blinking in slow, steady rhythms, and they made tiny hums that were almost like laughter. They were awake, exploring the edges of the blanket, curling against him instinctively, yet they did not move away. They did not fight. They did not scream. Zarax's massive claws flexed. She leaned forward. The queen's voice, sharp and commanding, rang across the fleet. "Bring me closer. I want to see this human myself." Her fleet adjusted immediately, keeping weapons ready but lowering aggression. Every scout and ship felt the tension, the queen's expectation. None dared interrupt. Even her commanders, hardened by centuries of service, watched in awe as Zaraxa prepared to witness something unprecedented. As her eyes focused on the small chamber, the queen felt the human's heartbeat through the connection of her sons. Slow. Steady. Come. It filled the twins with a sense of security, something they had not felt in cycles. Zarax's rage, once a firestorm of fear, anger, and loss, shifted. Confusion edged into her mind. The twins stirred slightly, pressing closer to Evan. One lifted a tiny hand and brushed against his neck, a gesture of trust and recognition. Zarax's mind pulsed with disbelief. She had trained generations of warriors, commanded fleets to crush entire systems, yet here was a human holding what all her armies could not touch safely. Evan spoke softly, words incomprehensible to alien ears, yet the twins understood. They responded with gentle clicks, soft vibrations, gestures born of instinct and trust. The queen watched them and realized something extraordinary. The human did not dominate, command, or control. He guided with care, patience, and stillness. Zaraxa felt a flicker of unease. Could a human, so small and seemingly weak, be stronger than her armies? Her pride flared, but it was tempered by a strange, unfamiliar feeling: respect. She ordered the fleet to remain in passive orbit. No attacks. Observe. Nothing is to harm them, she commanded. I will decide. The queen extended her perception further, letting her consciousness reach the twins. She felt their comfort, their relaxation. They were safe. For the first time, her sons had chosen to rest in a being not of their species, and the trust was complete. They did not resist. They did not struggle. They were not afraid. Zaraxa's thoughts swirled. She had never encountered patience like this. Her soldiers struck with power. Her enemies obeyed or perished. But the human strength was quiet, subtle, unseen. It did not burn. It did not roar. Yet it held the twins in perfect safety. The queen moved closer. Through the viewport, she could see Evan shift slightly, careful not to disturb them. One twin lifted its head, blinking at her distant ship, but it did not panic. The other stretched, yawned, and returned to his chest. The queen's sharp mind recognized the gestures immediately. These were signs of complete trust. Her fury did not vanish, but it changed. Anger became curiosity. Confusion turned to wonder. The queen's mind reached outward, questioning, testing the limits of what she saw. How could a human, so small, so fragile, so unaware of his power, hold her sons without weapons, without strategy, without threat? She realized then that strength was not only measured in claws or fleets. Strength could be measured in patience, in warmth, in the willingness to protect without expectation. The human embodied all of it. Zaraxa leaned over the console, her glowing eyes never leaving the chamber. The twins stirred again, nudging Evan's chest, their soft movements a mirror of the trust he had earned. The queen felt her own chest tighten in an unfamiliar way. She wanted to reach them, to test, to demand, to assert, but a small, insistent voice in her mind warned her not to. The human's presence was not a threat. It was something else. Mother, one of her commanders whispered, hesitation in every syllable. The human, the children respond. Come, safe. They trust him. The queen exhaled slowly, a hiss of air that sounded like fire in the empty void of her ship. Then he is worthy, she said. Worthy. The word tasted strange, foreign, yet undeniable. Worthy of holding what her empire had fought to protect. Worthy of carrying the future of her line without knowing it. She continued to watch as the human shifted slightly, adjusting the twins without waking them. The smallest gestures, unnoticed by most, were profound to her trained eyes. Each careful movement preserved trust. Each quiet hum reinforced safety. Each heartbeat connected with the twins' fragile minds. Zaraxa made a decision. She would not act with anger. She would not strike. Instead, she would observe, learn, and decide what this human represented. His actions had changed the rules of engagement, reshaped the understanding of strength, and challenged the assumptions that had guided her reign for centuries. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the soft hum of the station and the gentle sounds of trust. The twins rested, one curled against Evan's chest, the other lying beside him. Evan's eyes were open, alert but calm. The queen's mind pulsed with the realization that the children were safe because of his choice, not hers. For the first time, Zaraxa considered that there might be more to life than dominance and control. That the smallest, quietest being could hold more power than armies, fleets, or weapons. That the simple act of care could shape the future of an empire. She watched until the stars shifted outside her viewport. She watched until the twins shifted in sleep, and the human's steady presence remained unwavering. And she understood something she had never known. Sometimes the strongest protector is not the one who roars, strikes, or commands, but the one who holds patiently with a calm heart and steady hands. Zaraxa leaned back, a low rumble echoing in her chest. The queen had come expecting fury, but she found something stranger, something more powerful. A human. Alone. Quiet. Holding her sons safely in a way no weapon could match. And for the first time, she wondered what would happen if she let him continue. Evan did not expect the queen to come. He had sensed the tension, of course, the way the station sensors occasionally flickered and the faint ripple in the twins' minds when they sensed distant power. But nothing had prepared him for Zaraxa herself, appearing in orbit, her ship massive, humming with strength that could crush worlds. The human's heart raced, but he did not move. The twins stirred slightly, pressing closer against him. They knew danger. They could feel it in the shifting air, in the vibration of the station. Yet Evan stayed calm. He had learned long ago that panic spread faster than fear itself. His arms remained steady, his voice quiet, soft. The queen's transmission filled the chamber. Her voice was deep, rolling like thunder, yet it carried no threat this time. "Human," she said. "Step forward." Evan swallowed. He had no weapons, no authority, no armor. He simply stood, careful not to disturb the twins. I am Evan Cole," he said. "I just wanted to help." Zaraxa's eyes glowed. She could feel the sincerity, the honesty, the pure intent behind his words. No schemes, no hidden motives. Just care. Her sons shifted on his chest, recognizing her presence but not recoiling. They were safe because of him, not in spite of him. "Why do you hold them?" she asked, her tone sharp yet curious. Evan's voice was steady. "Because they are small. Because they are scared. Because they needed someone to be steady. I don't know what they are or why everyone is searching for them. I just know they needed someone who wouldn't hurt them." Zaraxa's mind expanded, reaching for every corner of his thoughts. There was no fear. No calculation. Only care. She had commanded empires, trained warriors, and crushed worlds with strategy. And yet here, a human had accomplished something no army could. He had gained the complete trust of her children. The queen's fury, once a roaring fire, had turned into awe. She saw now that strength was not only in fleets or claws, but in patience, in calm, in care. The human had redefined strength for her. After a long pause, Zaraxa made her decision. She commanded the fleet to remain at ease. "No harm," she said. "And let him remain with the children." Her advisors questioned the order. "Mother, he is human. Unarmed. Wait, how can this be allowed?" "Because he is strong," she replied simply. "Stronger than any weapon we have. He protects without threat. He calms without force. He earns trust where we cannot command it." The transmission ended. Evan exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. The twins stirred, blinking at the queen's distant image, then returned to his chest. They trusted him completely, and for the first time in cycles they had no fear. Word spread quickly across the empire. Scouts and fleets returned, reporting the impossible. A human alone had cared for the royal heirs without challenge. Other species, long rivals and wary observers, began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. If one human could accomplish such a feat, perhaps humans were capable of far more than they had been credited for. Zaraxa herself observed silently from orbit, studying Evan. He did not boast. He did not demand recognition. He simply returned to his work, quietly fixing the station, tending to the twins, and ensuring they were comfortable. The queen realized that this was true power. It did not seek fame, it did not roar for attention, it did not strike out. It existed in the calm, steady presence of someone who acted with care. The empire adapted slowly. Policies shifted. Humans, once considered minor players in galactic politics, were now seen as species to watch, to respect, perhaps even to trust. Stories of Evan Cole spread, though he did not seek them. He was called a guardian beyond blood, an honor never before given to any being outside the alien empires. Evan did not care for titles. He cared for the twins. He continued to care for them day after day as they explored, learned, and grew stronger. He taught them simple things: how to move without harming others, how to observe and understand before acting, how to trust in someone who would not hurt them. In return, they taught him too, the patience of a being that saw the world differently, the wisdom of creatures whose instincts were honed by survival and power. The queen eventually visited again personally. She observed, silently, without intervention. She saw Evan laughing softly as one of the twins tried to mimic his movements. She saw him whispering instructions, guiding them gently. And she realized that this human had done what no fleet, no commander, no weapon could do. He had tamed fear with care, reshaped instincts with patience, and won trust through kindness. Across the galaxy, alliances shifted. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were no longer dismissed. The quiet acts of one human had rewritten the rules of engagement, redefining what strength could mean. Other species began to approach humans with curiosity, with respect, and sometimes with hope. Evan did not seek recognition. He did not ask for fleets, armies, or titles. He simply continued his quiet work, repairing stations, helping beings in need, and holding the twins when they slept. And the Empire, slowly and reluctantly, learned from him. Zaraxa, watching silently, understood the lesson. Power was not only in dominance or fear. True strength could come from the smallest, quietest hands, and sometimes the most unassuming being could hold the future of an empire without raising a claw or firing a weapon. And so humanity was redefined, not through war, not through conquest, not through roaring fleets, but through patience, care, and the quiet courage of a human who had held the galaxy's most precious beings in his arms. In that small station, far from the battles and politics of the universe, Evan Cole smiled softly as the twins curled against him. Outside, stars shifted, fleets moved, and the Queen's mind pulsed with understanding. The galaxy had changed, and it had begun with a quiet human, a steady heart, and a simple choice: to care. The twins slept peacefully. Evan remained still. And in the calm of that small chamber, the impossible had become real. A human had held the future of an empire, and through that act he had changed everything.